Hello, and welcome to Firehouse Table Talks podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Toma. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and I'm also a career firefighter and paramedic with over 20 years on the job. On this podcast, the views and opinions expressed are those of the participants, and they in no way reflect the views or opinions of our employers. This podcast serves to give a unique peek behind the curtain into the lives of our nation's first responders, military veterans, and their families. These are their stories, raw and uncensored. Now, pour yourself a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and join us at the table. Thanks for tuning in. Now, on to our show.
We can go home to the one we love.
On today's episode, we've got Ben Mulch joining us. Ben is a U.S. Army veteran and currently career firefighter. I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that one, right?
You are correct, yeah.
So Ben works on Columbus with me. Ben reached out as a willing participant. I wasn't bribed or sponsored at all to be on here. So he reached out. He wanted to come on and tell a story. So I open it up to you, brother. Give us a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, been kind of got a late start in the fire service, but been on for 5 years now. Work at the Columbus Station 18 down in South Linden. Got married, two wonderful little boys, a 10-year-old Connor and an 8-year-old Caleb. Just doing that a lot, My older son is autistic, so we deal with that quite a bit, but we finally found a good school for him here in the Dublin area, so
Good.
everything's working out good with that, so.
So if you want, we can talk about that a little bit more, but let's start off with you served in the U.S. Army. What years were you in the Army?
I joined the Army in 2009. Served through 2014, medically discharged. So 2008, the reason I joined, I was going through a divorce. My first wife ended up getting a DUI, and looked at my life and decided I needed to make a change. Things weren't going exactly the way I thought they were going to go. 28 years old, getting divorced, dealing with the DUI. Went down, talked to the recruiter, ASVAB and all that stuff. Ended up at Fort Jackson for my basic training, Fort Sill for my AIT. I was a 13 Bravo cannon crew member. Left there, came home actually on my leave, met my current wife, my current wife, and we dated, and I went back to Fort Bliss down in Texas in El Paso. I was deployed out of there in 2011 to Afghanistan for a year. I did the first few months in Logar province at Cop McLean. Left there. Went to Cop Nurk, which if you look up Cop Nurk, there's some stuff that came out after we left, after we turned it over to Special Forces. Some of the things they were doing. Started getting a little crazy, I guess, there. Ended up at Cop Garda, which was probably one of the roughest places I was. A lot of insurgency, a lot of Al-Haqqani network coming over from Pakistan, getting a lot of IEDs, firefights.
Pretty close to the border there then?
No, it's northeast of Kabul.
Okay.
It was the farthest east COP that we had at the time, but it's not really all that close to the Pakistani border.
Huh.
So it was a weird situation. Like they're like, yeah, we don't really go east from here, which we went to the next village over. And that was about it. So I mean, it was a Taliban stronghold. They had control of the communication towers. They had control of the towns to the north and the south of us. I mean, it was an intense situation. And then so June 27th of 2012. So I was scheduled to leave Afghanistan on the 28th of June. The 27th, we're doing right seat, left seat, which for anybody who wasn't in the military, it's where the incoming unit is getting trained up on the area of operation by the outgoing unit. So they came in, and their lieutenant told me, he's like, hey, look, you can stay back. I'll take your seat. We're just going to run over to Fob Airborne, grab some supplies, come back, just get a lay of the land. And on their way back, they hit a 225-pound IED killed the lieutenant, killed my best friend that was driving the truck. He was actually going to be the best man at my wedding. Um, obviously injured everybody in the truck. My lieutenant ended up, everything on his left side was broken. My buddy, who was the gunner, ended up with concussion, broken ankle, gash in his chin. You could see that it was a compound fracture of his ankle. You could see like bones sticking out. Um, so I left the next day, went to Fob Shank, and then flew back. Uh, so that when we got back, um, I didn't really notice it very much, but my wife. So I got married after I got back in August of 2012, and my wife moved down. I didn't really notice anything wrong with me when I came back. I was just doing the regular thing of drinking like a 30 rack every night. I thought that's how everybody was dealing with it.
Numbing
Apparently,
yourself and trying to help sleep.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I was doing. I'd suffered some stuff, like some couple injuries over there. I'd torn up my knee really bad, like the first week we were there, and ended up having surgery on that. And still not really thinking about the mental component of what was going on. I was more worried about the physical. And then my wife actually is the one who said something to me about it. She's like, "Yeah, you should probably go talk to somebody because I think you're holding a lot inside." And I hadn't really thought about, like I said, I hadn't thought about it at all. And went down and I talked to the doctors on base, and they actually recommended I went to the Warrior Resiliency Unit, which is a month-long course for soldiers with PTSD. And I did get a PTSD. What's the word I'm looking for?
Rating?
Diagnosis.
Okay.
I got a diagnosis for that, and then I also had major depressive disorder, sleep disorder, obviously. Sleeping 4 hours a night, which that's been an ongoing thing for the last 12 years. You just get used to it after a while. Hey, it works out for the job.
Doesn't change in the fire service much, does it?
No, it does not. It actually helps a little bit. But so I ended up they gave me the choice. I could stay in or I could get out. I was kind of at the point at that time, my second contract was almost up. I wasn't sure if I was going to re-enlist anyways. So I decided to go ahead and get out, got my rating from the VA. They gave me 70% for my PTSD and my knee. And the thing is like, I know when I was going through the process to get hired with Columbus, like you have to go see the psychiatrist, and she obviously knew about my things that I've had in my past.
Were you worried that might be kind of a hurdle that you were going to have to go over?
I was worried that it was, and I've found, and I'm hoping if somebody sees this and they take it to heart, the more you talk about these kind of things, and like any rough thing in life, the more you talk about it, the easier it gets. And I mean, I'm 12 years removed from this happening, and like I said, this is one of my best friends. He's the other team leader in my squad, so like we spent a lot of time together. And Captain America, everybody loved this dude. He was the prototypical soldier, looked like a soldier, just blonde hair, blue eyed, big dude. And the more you talk about it, the easier it's going to get. And I think this could probably bleed over to the fire service too. I know guys, like you and me, we're a little bit older. I joined the fire service when I was 38 years old. I obviously had a little bit of life experience before I got on. But then you see some of these younger guys, and you wonder how some of these runs that we take are gonna affect them. And just to know that it's okay, you can talk about this stuff, and it's going to make it easier. Bottling this stuff up is not something that's going to make it any easier.
Well, and that's one good thing about. Seems like the culture in the fire service is kind of changing. I don't know if it's doing the same in the military, but hopefully a little bit. I mean, with everything that happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot of guys saw a lot of shit. So,
yeah.
I'm hoping that I know a lot of them, like you said, were self-destructive. That's it's a survival response. You're trying to survive. That's pretty much it. But and that's the premise of this podcast, is for us to talk about this stuff and let other people who may be listening, like, you know what? Yeah, I've seen some stuff. Now, I'm kind of curious. Did your wife happen to say what it was that you were doing that kind of cued her in that I can't help him? He needs to talk to someone.
I think mine was more of like an anger issue. I had
lashing out.
I've always been pretty laid back. Like I'm not like a lot of things don't really bother me. And at that point, um, it, things that shouldn't have bothered me were bothering me. Just getting mad at her for no reason, just getting mad at situations for no reason. And like that's never been me. So yeah, she was very very helpful in this whole thing. I would never tell her that, but that's just
We won't tell her either.
yeah, that's just the way it is.
And my wife,
So
she doesn't know at all that she's probably the reason that I sought help. I've only
yeah,
mentioned it maybe a few handful of times on here, but the ones that truly love you, man, they're just like, I tell everybody. My wife called me on my bullshit. She's like, "You need help, man. I can't help
yeah,
you. You have to help yourself. You have to go get help."
yeah,
And she's stubborn. I love her.
yeah. I think sounds like we got one that are about the same. Mine is definitely stubborn,
Now, she was
but
with
I'm
you
glad she is.
pretty much through your whole time in the military too, correct?
Yes, I met her right after I got done with basic and AIT.
So was my wife, the whole time. Well, we weren't married at the point, but, we were dating all through the time I was in the military. And I think that's kind of what led me to believe, you know what, she's a pretty damn
Yeah,
good one.
yeah.
Probably won't
She
find
knew me
another
before.
woman. Yeah, I don't think I could find another woman that could put up with my shit the way she does. So that's
Yeah,
the reason
trust me.
I got out. I got out because I was like, I thought about staying in and getting married and moving her out to the West Coast with me, but I didn't want to take her away from her whole family. And
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of military marriages go south. It's a very
it's
challenging environment, especially, the Navy's deployed all the time. We're
yeah,
out constantly.
yeah,
The other branches, yeah, they go here and there when it's not wartime, but, not as probably much as the Navy does. And I was like, I don't know that I want to put her through that. So,
yeah. My brother's in the Navy, and both my brothers. My oldest brother retired from the Army after 24 years, and then my other brother's in the Navy still. And somehow my sister-in-law, who's a saint, they have 5 kids, and I don't know how she does it.
it's,
Like, luckily, the last few years he's been home the majority of the time because he's an instructor now. But like, I don't know how she does it. I
I
don't know how
think
she puts up
that's
with
what we kind of all deserve towards the end of our careers, is to kind of be able to settle down a little bit and kind of take your foot off the gas and
it. Yeah,
enjoy your family and be more present. That's kind of why I took the role I did, is because, I missed the most important part of my kids' lives, a lot of it, because, our schedule. So with us, we work 24 on, 48 off. And yeah, you miss birthdays, you miss Christmases. Yeah, we got guys that'll cover you every now and then, but you still do sacrifice and miss a lot.
yeah,
I don't necessarily regret going the route I did, being busy early on, getting my ass kicked, staying up, working at Station 18 where you're at.
yeah,
I know that area, and it's very busy, and it can be very frustrating at times. And I know I brought a lot of that, because that's kind of when my buildup started, was when I was there.
yeah.
Is
So what I do after a shift is I take about an hour and I drive around just up here by my house. I live up, uh, North Columbus, pretty much Lewis Center. So a lot of back roads. Just get out on those back roads and just drive a little bit and just. I don't ever want to bring home anything from work, so I try to get all that stuff out. Get that stuff out.
That's a
Get out
great
of my
idea.
truck. Touch my truck. Leave it on my truck, and then we go inside and we deal with the family.
Do you find that hard to do sometimes, though?
It can be. It just depends. And I don't know if you're the same way as me, but like the only runs that really bother me are kid runs. And
It's a big one. Yeah.
unfortunately, at South Linden and 18th district between 5th and Hudson is probably the highest level of SIDS in the city. So
Yeah.
we get quite a few of those, and that's the hardest one for me. And it's having kids and then seeing other people's. That's what really gets to me.
It's
Those
hard
are the
when you're
hard ones.
working on that kid not to see your kid sitting there or
Yeah,
lying there.
exactly.
I get
Exactly.
exactly what you're saying. That stuff messes with you sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like the adults and stuff, I figure, and it sounds callous, but I've built calluses over the years, not just from the fire, but from the military resiliency. I mean, you made your bed, you lay in it. We all make
Yeah.
our own choices to get where we are in life.
Let's face it, a lot of people that we help, they put themselves in the positions that they're in. I mean, we do go on accidents and see some tragic stuff, but there's a lot of people that do some dumb shit that, stupidity keeps us employed. I hate to say it.
Yeah. It definitely
job security.
Does. It's not going anywhere.
And we're coming into the July 4th weekend, so here's hoping everybody ends the week with as many digits as you began it with.
I got 10 too, so let's make sure.
There might be someone listening to this episode, or while we're recording this, when it comes out next week, they may not have their 10 chubby phalanges on their hands anymore.
I feel like I should be good. I used to shoot artillery, so I should be good, right?
Well, you're experienced. Accidents can still happen. I mean,
oh yeah.
What's that old meme? Don't let the kids light the fireworks. Give them to the adults that have been drinking all day.
Yeah. Yep. I just saw that yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's. They put on a great show in South Linden at that school. At the school right off of Hamilton.
They put on a better show on New Year's Eve.
Well, yeah, we had that too. I got video of that.
Oh yeah, me too. My first New Year's Eve. It sounded like Baghdad. I remember I was out on the terrace on the roof facing north, and one of the guys on the houses directly outside had an AK and just fired off a whole 30-round mag.
You must still live there.
Oh, shit.
We were up there until we heard one, zip by, and I was like, "That's close, guys. I'm going inside."
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, it's probably still there on the south terrace door. There's a bullet hole.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's right by my bedroom.
For all of you listening that aren't familiar, South Linden it's a rougher part of the city. It's low income. It's gang ridden. That's where I spent probably the first 6 years as a paramedic, cutting my teeth when I got my medic card. Because I went through all that schooling to become a medic. I figured, you know what, I better go somewhere and learn what I'm doing, and no better place to learn trauma than where all the gunshots happen.
A lot. I mean, you get a good mix of stuff there. A lot of trauma. Not as much as this year hasn't been as bad, but a lot of good difficulty breathing stuff like that. You get some good runs there. As a medic, I would. I'm not a medic, but I would imagine like that's probably the place you want to go if you want to test all of your skills.
Oh, if you want to get good at it, you have to put yourself in those situations. You just can't I think if I'm put in that situation, I'll be good at it. You got to do it. There's no other way. Being a paramedic, you could be the top student in your class, but until you're actually the one with your finger sticking in a bullet wound, keeping that artery from bleeding out, you can't replicate that in training, man.
No, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
So when you got out of the Army, when did you get out of the Army?
2000, it was actually the 12th of September, 2012. 2014.
And then when did you get hired on with Columbus?
I was the 6/17/19 class.
So a few years there. So what kind of, I always ask, I like this question is, so a lot of guys in the fire service were prior military because of, I want to say it's kind of like that type A mentality, where
the brotherhood.
What I'm curious as to what drove you towards your interest in the fire service after the military?
Well, so my father-in-law was on for 26 years, Bill Rhodes, and he had always talked to me about it. And even when I was getting out of the military, he's like, "Hey, you should take a test. You should take a test." And I just didn't feel like I was ready for it at the time. So I mean, I did some bullshit jobs in between getting out of the military. I used to make dog food, so it's not.
That's funny. The things we do, we're just kind of spinning our wheels, still trying to find that purpose.
Yeah, at that time, it's just trying to make enough money to survive. 2 kids and a wife, and we've been blessed since. Me getting on, and my wife has a great job. My wife makes more than we do. We've been the last probably 6 years. We've just been real blessed with the way things have gone. And I'm thinking it's probably perseverance and hard work of just trying to find that thing that makes you happy. I could make $25,000 a year as long as it's something that makes me happy and gives me purpose. I do it.
I think a lot of people struggle with that, as they struggle to find that purpose or that job that gives them that purpose. And so
think
when
you
you
just get to
find it,
that,
it's
you get to that rut where you're just, oh, I'm making good money, but this job doesn't really mean that much to me. Because like the dog food, I made good money making dog food. That job meant absolutely nothing to me. Like I'm just there to get a paycheck, and that's not how you can. It's not a good way to live your life.
yeah, you got to put food on the table, man. It's sometimes you just got
Yeah,
to do what you got to do. It's especially if you got
yeah,
family.
you got to bite the bullet, but at the same
Yeah,
time, like getting the opportunity I did with Columbus, it came at a great time for me and for my family, and been real lucky with it.
that's cool. So you've been on Columbus for a few years now.
Hmm.
Said you're not a medic. Are you looking to get any extra? I'm not saying go to P school,
No, I'm
but I
not going to
mean,
peaceful.
the fire
I thought
department.
about maybe.
We've got bomb squad. We've got dive team. We've got all sorts of stuff. Is there anything else that interests you?
I've thought about bomb squad just from uh, military experience dealing with the EOD guys when I was in the military.
Yeah,
Um, saw a lot of explosives, so had a lot of explosives go off around me. So it's something that has interested me. It's just I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. I like being just a firefighter for right now.
yeah.
I'm gonna take this promotional, but like I really enjoy being a firefighter. Like just either driving or riding in the back seat. I mean, even being on the medic doesn't like driving the medic doesn't bother me. I mean, a lot of guys complain about it, but it's keeps you busy, makes the day go by faster.
It is
Like,
what it is. I mean,
yeah, we
you
all got to
have
do it.
you have to go into it with the mentality knowing that that's what roughly 80% of what we do as a fire department is the EMS stuff.
Yeah.
Not
Oh
many
yeah.
people love that side of the job, but it's part of the job.
It's a
And
necessity of the job.
the one thing I
That's why.
learned real quick is, treat everyone with respect because
Mhm.
there's a lot of guys in some of those areas that, they're up all night taking those bullshit runs and you can see the fuse getting shorter. And there's
Yep.
just the way they treat people, you're like, man, I don't want to have to jump into a fight because you piss off the wrong person.
Yeah. And
You're,
I've been pretty lucky with the
oh
medics that
yeah,
I've had
you're
that I
with,
work with. The guys in 18s are they understand it.
you're in these houses and with these patients for 20, 30 minutes tops. Just smile and just,
Yeah.
a lot of them, they don't have health care. We are the health care. So
Mhm.
help them out.
Or healthcare, where to educate them too about stuff because they think
Yeah.
everything, and it's like it everywhere in the city. If they call 911, they think it's an emergency, and it's an emergency to them.
Yeah.
But if you can educate them a little bit and explain to them, well, this might not be an emergency that you think it is. This might be you need to go see your doctor or you need to go to urgent care, but you don't need to go to the emergency room. And now you're
Yep.
saving them time, saving them money. And I
I
think,
would always do that. I would always give them my advice. Like, do I think you need to go to the emergency room? No. But if you want to go,
we'll
I
go.
never told anybody I'm not taking you.
Yeah.
I've always
Yeah.
given them the choice.
I've never heard anybody say, no, I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
It's
The
just,
one thing that always seemed to really bug me, well, back when I first started, the medic vehicles were 2 paramedics.
Mhm.
And you get that partner that as soon as you walk in the house, before anybody says anything, you want to go to the hospital. That's the first thing out of their mouth.
Yeah.
You're setting a bad precedent right there.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Maybe
Hey,
dive a little deeper into the issue before.
right. Find out what the problem is. It may be something you can just say, hey, you need some Tylenol. Here you go.
Yeah.
Stay home. If it gets worse, you can call us back. But this is
Yeah.
pretty much all you need. Sprain, strains.
Yeah.
We are frontline healthcare. That's the bottom line. That's what we are.
Yeah. Yeah. There's I don't say much on EMS runs. I let the medics handle it. And like I said, the medics I work with are experienced in that area and that our district or close to it.
Never really
So
been many slouch medics survive at those busy houses. I'll say that.
no, you'll get run out pretty quick.
Oh, you'll get run out or you won't last long because you won't be able to
Yeah.
handle it. Because you will get tested. There's no doubt about it. You're going to get
A
tested.
couple times a day.
Yeah. And it's usually the guy in the middle of the night that's been drinking, and you say the wrong thing. Next thing you know, it's a fight's popping off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to learn to just bite your tongue, smile, and help the people when you can. That's So promotion. You said you're interested in getting promoted.
Yeah, I'm going to take the promotional. I'm going to study for it. You know, I hope I do well, but I think just the experience of taking it and just seeing it, I mean, that's going to help. Just the studying for it's going to make me better at our job. So
I took a few of the promotionals, but I don't know. I just never found that motivation to get promoted because it reminds me a lot of the military where the higher in rank you go, the further away from the actual job you get.
yeah,
And it's not necessarily a bad thing because I think, and the gentlemen and ladies on this department that have served in the military, if you want my honest opinion, they would probably make better officers because they've been in situations where they've had to lead people before. You said you were you were a squad leader, right?
Yeah, I was a sergeant. Yeah.
There you go. So you had people, subordinates underneath you, and you know how a chain of command works. There's still a lot of people in this department that have no idea how a chain of command works.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, well, I just can't call Chief so-and-so because I'm pissed off that this happened. I have to go through my formal chain of command.
Yeah.
And it's kind of frustrating, but, you know, I studied. I tried to find that motivation a few times to take the test, and I got the books, invested in getting them bound. Like, okay, if I spend the money, I'm going to really study. And I started well with good intentions.
Yeah.
Then I just realized it's not what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping I'm gonna start studying here in a couple months, and hopefully I can keep the motivation throughout. I'm trying to keep it. I know guys that have already started studying, have been studying, and I can't do that for a year.
Well, my biggest kick in the ass is when I was at 18, there was 3 or 4 other guys there studying. And, you know, I was still learning to become a medic. And they're like, hey, you taking the test? I was like, kind of like you. I signed up for it just because I wanted to see what it's like. And they're like, well, come study with us. I was like, well, they're all chiefs and captains now.
Yeah.
But here I am.
Yeah, there's a group of them that got promoted out of there all at once. And they're all lieutenants, captains, chiefs.
Yep. And I was there when it happened. And I was like, the whole firehouse pretty much emptied out because they all got promoted.
Yeah.
Like, damn. I should have probably listened to that.
Last list.
I'm not saying,
you know,
I think I would probably make a decent officer, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I still like it in the trenches.
You're still kind of lieutenant and captain. I think anything higher than that is you're getting a little too far removed from.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely wouldn't have an issue getting promoted to lieutenant, but maybe captain, but I don't know that I would go any higher than that. I don't have that desire. Too much administration, too much paperwork.
Yeah, a lot of people you got to worry about.
So you mentioned you have 2 boys. How old are they?
They're 8 and 10.
8 and 10. And you said one of them was diagnosed as autistic, correct?
Yeah, he was diagnosed when he was probably about 16 months old.
Really?
Yeah, my wife and I had noticed just certain milestones he wasn't meeting as he was getting, older. But yeah, they gave us a preliminary diagnosis, and then, we both pretty much knew. So yeah, he's probably the happiest kid you'll ever meet in your life.
That's awesome.
He's a daddy's boy, loves his dad, and we've had him in public school for the most part. We're in the Olentangy district, so we got lucky there. We live in Delaware County, which is really nice because Delaware County does a lot for special needs, and then Olentangy does a really good job with special needs. But he's in 4th grade this year, and we finally just hit a wall with where we thought he was going to go with that. So we found a private school. Olentangy actually pays for it, thankfully.
Oh, really?
Yeah, since they recommended it, we were going to look for it, but then his aides, that he's had the same aides for his entire time in school, so they recommended it, so that way the school district pays for it. So yeah, he goes to school in Dublin. He gets picked up every day. He loves it. loves going to school. He used to fight you to go to school, and now it's, hey buddy, you ready to go to school? And he is out the door and in his little transportation car and on his way to school.
That's awesome.
So
That's another
yeah,
good thing about too being on this job is, so you said your wife works. So does she work on the days that you're off?
she works full time. She's a hotel general manager. So.
Okay. But the cool thing is 2 out of every 3 days, Dad's home.
Yes.
And that's one thing I
Dad's
really
home.
enjoyed is, so I got on the fire department in 2003. Our first son was born in 2005. So I was living that 24/48 life their whole life. And so we never really needed daycare per se. As the kids got a little older, my wife changed her work schedule. So on our duty day, she would be off work. And then when I would come home, she'd go to work those 2 days.
Yeah.
That was great until I became a medic at Station 18.
Then
so
you
I
come home
transferred
and you
into
want to sleep.
Station 18. Well, it had to be early 2008 because our second son, Braden, was born June of 08. And I was at 18s when he was born. He had just been born right after I transferred there. And there were some days, man, I'd come home from work and like as soon as I'd walk in the door, she'd hand me the baby and she'd go off to work. And I'm sitting there on the couch holding this little newborn baby trying not to fall asleep because we had got our ass kicked all night.
Yeah.
And after falling asleep, holding him a couple times, I had to have a little talk with her like, look, this is not safe. I can't keep doing this. Luckily, she had the type of job and the type of boss where she changed her schedule where, so on the mornings that we got off work, she wouldn't go in until around 1 or 2 p.m. So if I came home after a bad night, I'd go, shower and go straight to bed so I can get a good nap. But other than that, it was me and the boys. Daddy daycare, baby. Driving them around, taking them to the mall, letting them play. I'm the only dad there because it's all moms. And they're like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a fireman. I don't have to work today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. I don't know, it depends on how you look at it. My mother-in-law lives with us, so I get home, I can take a nap. I usually get up about 1, pretty much every duty day. I mean, there's certain days, I'm fine. I can stay up, but I'll usually get about 1, and then it's me and the boys. They're in school. So like my older son, he goes to school year round now. But he gets home 3:30. My other son if he's in school, he gets home at 3:30. If not, he's just here with me, just hanging out, going to the batting cages, going outside, doing whatever he wants to do. So
that's a cool part about this job is, if you, I know a lot of firemen work other jobs and I'm not knocking that, but to be able to be home and be present with your kids while they grow up and actually have a huge part in their life at such an early age. Now I know, there was a lot of times where I was that sleep deprived a-hole dad, but
yeah. I'm sure there's been some times for me too. Don't worry.
It took quite a few years for me to figure that out. Like, well, like you said, you're taking it out on everyone else, the short fuse and the lashing out, but they're older now. I've got one going to college this fall, and the other one just turned 16 a couple days ago. So,
congratulations.
I'm looking at empty nest coming up here in the next few years. So it's going to be a weird transition. Right after that, retirement.
There you go. And then what?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not working, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little fish.
I've been able. There you go. I coach my younger son's teams. I coach him in football, basketball. Just started coaching him in baseball. So, I mean, that every third week, I'm not there, but the other 2 weeks, I get to be there. So
I did that too. I never volunteered to be a head coach because I always told him, I think a head coach should be at every game, and I can't promise that with our schedule. I'm going to miss games, but I was always an assistant coach for both of them in baseball. I was a scout leader with both my boys for 8 years. I was a Cub Scout leader, so the kindergarten through 5th grade, but I was the Cub master of the pack. And so we planned all the events and made sure all the kids had fun. Just being able to take that time and be part of your kids' lives. That's the shit they'll remember when you're long gone. Hopefully.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
That and a
Never
nice
knows.
life insurance check you leave them, maybe.
Yeah. I think my wife's looking at that. So.
Yeah, well, got to leave them something.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool, man. Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know, man. I'm just like I said earlier, man. My big thing is these young guys coming in. Like, don't think you have to bottle this stuff up. Like this.
Right.
Like, you're doing a great job with this podcast, man. Like, you're getting it out there that like, mental health in this job is the most important thing. It's going to lead to a long career. It's going to lead to a happy career. Like, don't take the things out on people that don't deserve it, and don't take it out on yourself. I mean, if you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. And that's the biggest thing
that's
for
the thing. A
me.
lot of people are just, they're like, I don't need help. It's, if you think you need help, you need help.
Yeah, well, if you think you
There's,
need help, it's too late. Like
yeah.
sometimes, like that's the problem because you're not going to be the one to recognize it. If somebody tells you that you need to get some help, I mean, they're probably seeing something.
Yeah.
And it's still, even after my wife told me, it still took me a little bit of time with me fighting with her, saying no, I'm fine. And then even getting out of the military, fighting with my senior command. Like, you get labeled, a quitter and
Yep.
a weakling and, all this stuff. And it's like, no, man, I'm doing what's best for me and my family. Like, I served my country. I did something, what, 99.6% of the country isn't going to do.
We are the proud
So,
few, brother.
I'm going to take, I did 5 years, 7 months, and 22 days. Not that I was counting or anything,
Of
but
wartime too. You weren't
yeah,
peacetime. You
no,
served overseas in a war zone, and you saw probably some pretty awful shit. I haven't talked to too many people
yeah,
that were in Iraq and Afghanistan and said, "Oh, it was great."
it was great. Oh, well, I mean, and when people ask me about Afghanistan, I always tell them that, it's the best, worst time of my life because that's the way I look at it. Like it literally was probably some of the worst things I've seen and done in my life. But you're there with your boys and you're having a good time. And you're doing what you're trained to do. It's like going into a fire. Like
Well, you keep telling
you're
yourself
here
you're
with your boys.
making a difference in somebody's lives
Yeah,
over here.
yeah. And that was the problem. Is towards the end of that deployment, I just started feeling like we're not making any difference in these people's lives. Like it just,
So my buddy Craig was on our last episode, and a lot of his anger and issues stemmed from the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
mhm.
And knowing him, and I didn't serve in Afghanistan. I was in between the Gulf War and September 11th, so I was kind of in that middle phase. But I know a lot of veterans that served when you and Craig and folks like you served. How'd that strike you? I'm kind of curious.
I was not surprised. Um, Kind of saw the writing on the wall. Uh, so when I came back in 2012, they were starting to do a troop drawdown just in general in the military. That was one of the main reasons they told me you can stay in or you can get out. Like they're trying to draw down force size because we had ballooned in 2010, 2011, and it ballooned in Afghanistan quite a bit. And then as I was coming back, it was coming back down. I think I will never say that we didn't do something over there, didn't do something good, because I think we did. I think we did help a lot of people, and I would never disregard the men and women from our country who went there and served and lost their lives. But the way the government handled it does not surprise me. Where you just let's just drop this here and we're gone, we're out. Poof, David Copperfield, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, what's the right answer there? I mean, what's the best way to just leave a country back to its people? Say, hey, we're out of here. Here
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, and the thing is, you know, you can look at guys that were over there in the beginning, like Bob Panetta. He was there, one of the first guys over there. Like
Yeah.
so, like nothing changed in terms of the overall population the entire time we were there.
Right.
You have people who liked us, but then you have people that believe that their way of life that they've been living for the past 3,000 years, that's the way it's going to be. And you're not going to change that person's mind no matter how many artillery rounds or bullets you throw at them.
Well, when people spend their whole life under the boot, they know no
Yeah,
other life.
exactly.
And it's kind of, I would imagine it'd be kind of hard to say, hey, you could live a much better life than this. Just follow me. Do it this way.
Yeah. And we got a few, like I know a couple of my interpreters are over here now in the United States. They did the
I'm
program
glad
where
they did that.
they got citizenship, and it's a good thing they did that because, the threats against their families and everything. And the truth of the matter is a lot of those guys, they lost family members because they were interpreters helping the United States, and they do the same thing to anybody who helped us. So I can see why there's not a louder percentage of Afghans and Iraqis speaking out against Taliban and ISIS.
Well,
But
it's your whole family you're putting at risk. It's not really you.
exactly, it's not just you; it's everybody that you know and love. There's a risk.
Right. When people don't care killing women and children, you're not going to change that mindset.
And you can never eliminate them.
Right.
If you kill one, two more pop up behind them. So it's a never-ending cycle.
Right.
We had kids over there that just the look of hatred in their eyes when they would see us. And it's just like, wow, how are you so young and so full of just hatred of somebody?
Well, and it's kind of goes back to the World War II, the way the Japanese, taught the civilian population, well, if the Americans come, this is what they're going to do to you. So you had women actively throwing their children off the cliffs when the Americans were there in the islands because they were taught and cultured that don't let the Americans get a hold of you.
Mm-hmm.
We're there to help. We're probably the most humanitarian, able country in the world. And, it's just the culture, the way they're educated and, what they're told. And they know no different. Like you said, it's
just,
to
it's
see that level of hatred and evil in a child's eyes.
It's chilling. It's not something, you don't see it outside of it, like a war zone. Let's put it that way. Like you're not going to see that here.
Yeah, you look into a child's eyes, you expect to see that innocence and, the vulnerability, and it's just not there, especially in a war zone. I would imagine that's been long gone.
Yeah. I know when we were at McLean, the first COP that I was at over there, we had built a women's center right by the government center, right outside of the gates of our COP. And we didn't, but the U.S. government did. They had a guy drive a jingle truck right up next to it. They have it on video. It's on YouTube, and he detonates it. And I mean, it looks like a missile strike. He leveled that thing. It's filled with women in there. It's an education center because he didn't agree with them trying to better themselves.
You keep a population scared, they're not going to fight back.
Yeah,
that's it in a nutshell.
They do a very good job of that. Yeah.
And that's why the interpreters, if they help you, their family dies. Maybe I won't help the Americans because I love my family. That takes a hell of an individual to know that and still do it. And to know that the U.S. government was able to help those individuals, hopefully more than we know.
Well, they're taking a big leap of faith in believing that the U.S. government was actually going to help them. Because I know with the one guy, it took him 3 years after we got back for them to even start considering getting him over here.
And the whole time he's probably in hiding his family because I'm sure the Taliban had to know, hey, this guy.
Yeah, they know who they are.
Yeah.
He wasn't very, he showed his face, let's put it that way.
Oh, he didn't give a crap.
No, he did not. I think they'd killed his brother. And that's what he signed. His brother was an interpreter, and he signed up to be an interpreter. He was a great dude. He from northern Afghanistan. He lived in Nuristan. He said, "I'm not Afghan. I'm from Nuristan." Like, Seth, Nuristan's in Afghanistan. I'm not sure if you're really aware of that.
No, you know what that is, though? And at the core of it, true patriotism. Somebody who steps up and stands that line for their country.
Just trying to make it better.
what's your thought on if something like that happened now with our country? My personal opinion is it's going to be old guys like you and me going like, all right, stretch the back first.
There wouldn't be a whole lot of people standing up to do it, unfortunately.
I'm very thankful to the ones that I know that are still enlisting and volunteering. And, I've got a neighbor's kid across the street just graduated. He's enlisting. I'm like, there still are the good ones, but I'd have to believe that number is probably a whole lot less.
Seems few and far between.
This post 9/11 world, these kids that didn't live through September 11th, that, they just learned about it in school. They didn't even witness it on TV.
It's just like us, I'm 43 years old, so it's like me hearing about Vietnam. I was born in 80, so not long after Vietnam, but guys that would be enlisting now weren't born long after 9/11.
Nope.
But I didn't enlist because of Vietnam. So unfortunately it takes something like that to get. That was the best and worst part of our country was 9/11. I think the way the country came together. I mean, I think
I brought that up on one episode. I'd like to go back to September 12th, just the patriotism and the way the country came together. And we kind of all knew what was coming. And there were a lot of people signing up to go because they want a payback. And honestly, I was one of them. I was in my inactive reserve time from the Navy. And on September 12th, I went to a recruiter's office like, hey, put me back in because I know what's coming and I want to be part of it. Mm-hmm. And he had sat there and talked to me because I told him, I said, look, I'm still in active reserve. All you have to do is flip a switch and I'm active. Let's go. And he saw my ring and he's like, are you married? I said, yeah. So he started asking me all these questions about my wife and our relationship. And that son of a bitch talked me out of going back. He's like, look, man, I just got married in May of 01. He's like, look, man, it's coming. Do out the rest of your inactive time and we'll handle it from here. I was kind of pissed. Yeah. And that's what kind of sparked my fire career. Because I have a brother-in-law who's been on the fire department like you. As soon as I got out of the military, he kept bugging me. Take the test. Yeah. Nah, I'll go work here. I'll go do this. And I had a couple other jobs in between. But then it kind of, you watch what happened on September 11th and, all those firemen who ran into that building knowing what was going to happen, and they did it anyway. I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's the next step. So
it's the path to service that you can do here.
Yeah.
And that's the way I looked at it, is like, I didn't feel complete. Like I said, my family, we have a history of service to the country.
Yep.
But service to the community is the same. It fills me the same way that service to the country does.
Well, it's all public service in one way or another. So I kind of joined because of the same thing. So my grandfather was a tail gunner in a B-24 during World War II. My father was in the U.S. Army. I was like, you know what? I kind of always looked up to my family members that served, and I always admired that. I really didn't have a certain branch in mind. But, when I joined the Navy, it was to be... I cut school, and the building I went to had all the recruiters in one hallway. So I started with Air Force. Didn't have the ASVAB for that. Sitting outside the Marine Corps, and they had one of those signs on the door that said, be back in 30 minutes. So I'm just sitting there. Yeah. And the next door down, the Navy recruiter pops his head out, and he's like, what are you doing in the hallway? He's like, well, I'm waiting for these guys. He's like, well, you don't have to wait in the hallway. Why don't you come wait in here? I was like, well, I'm coming to talk to you next anyway, so let's get it over with. Yeah. Went in and sat down with those guys, and the one guy I was talking to, he's like, you ever consider the Navy? I was like, I'll consider anything. I don't have a particular branch in mind. He's like, well, if there's one job you could do in the Navy, what would it be? And of course, this was 93, 94. I was like, I think it'd be cool to work on one of those flight decks like those guys in Top Gun. He's like, I can get you. He's like, I can get you that job. I was like, talk to me more. Well, that's what I ended up doing. Working on an aircraft carrier on the flight deck, and it was Dude, I would go back tomorrow if I could.
Yeah. See, you got lucky. You had a choice of jobs. Regardless of my ASVAB score, I had two because I had DUI. So
Did you always think about Army, or did you consider any of the other branches?
I always thought Army. I have uncles, both sides of my family that were in the Army, and then both my brother's in the Navy now. He started out in the Army, and then he got out, did a couple of years, and then he joined the Navy.
He doesn't get shit for that, does he?
Oh no, he does. From mainly me and my other brother.
Well, yeah, but you guys don't like winning football games, so.
Nah. Trust me, I've had plenty of West Point graduates that played football at West Point. My lieutenant in Afghanistan played football at West Point, and I had two of them actually in Afghanistan. And the first one wasn't worth shit. The second one was an awesome. He's one of my favorite lieutenants I've ever had.
You'd be hard pressed to find a bigger rivalry in college football besides Ohio State, Michigan, than Army Navy.
Yes,
I would almost say Army Navy's probably above that, just for the simple fact of every day other than that day in December when those two teams play, they love each other.
Oh yeah,
I mean we razz each other, but and then that day comes and that's my dream, man. I want to go to Army Navy in Annapolis and actually see the game. So maybe one day I'll get to do that. But I have to retire first.
Somebody did it not too. I'm trying to think of who it was. It might have been Lieutenant Saska or somebody. I think I can't remember.
We've got a couple members with kids in the military academies.
Yeah,
I know one is a wrestler for Army. He was a heck of a football player too, but I guess he got recruited by Army to wrestle, so he's wrestling for Army.
Yeah, so. The lieutenant that took my seat in the truck when they hit the IED, he played football at West Point too. So he and my lieutenant were both in the truck, and they knew each other from West Point. And my lieutenant, his sister is married to Alejandro Villanueva. He used to play for the Steelers.
Yeah.
So quite a few little Army lieutenants that I got to meet and brush elbows with. Good guys.
Pretty cool. A lot of the pilots we dealt with were Naval Academy graduates, and they were pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pilots are always a different breed of officer than just your normal stuck up by the book officer. Yeah, they get to get launched off an aircraft carrier, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. It does. It seems kind of cool.
It wasn't bad.
I liked both, so I would have done it.
It was a little stressful. I mean, we saw a couple bad things here and there, and that's the start of some of my nightmares. But I'd go back tomorrow and do it all over again.
Yeah, I thought about it, but yeah, if you can put me back in the same place with the same people, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. It's not really where you are or what you're doing; it's who you're with.
Yeah,
we work hard for those around us, not necessarily the mission per se. It's I want to see us all get home. If I can do anything about that, then let's do that. Well, Ben, we're coming up on an hour, bud.
All right.
I appreciate your time. It's been great talking.
Yeah, always a pleasure talking with you, Jeremy.
Yeah, so it's like Ben said, if you're struggling, if you're a veteran, if you're a first responder, it doesn't matter. If you're struggling with anything or you think you might need something, you do. Reach out, get some help. I know Columbus, we have a good peer support team. That's starting to come. You're hearing a lot more about those popping up. EAP branches, it's okay to talk to somebody. It always starts with that first step, but that first step's always the hardest. And then, like you said, after you do it, you're like, why didn't I do that? Because I was stubborn. Stupid. I think that's the
strongest things you can do.
One of the main reasons of this podcast. It sucks watching people suffer in silence when you know they don't have to. Especially the suicide rate. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Everyone has bad days, but don't let the bad days rule your life.
A permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right. All right. Well, hey, man, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Lunch.
What's that?
Come by the station. We'll cook you lunch.
Oh, yeah. Let the dog run around.
There you go.
All right.
Plenty of room.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's the Taj Mahal of the city. It still is.
Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoy what you heard, be sure to drop us a follow. We'll try to release a new episode every other week. If you feel so inclined, take a moment and give us a review. Your support only serves to make this podcast better. And if you know of any first responder, military veteran, or family member who you think would be a great guest for us, drop us a line. Our email address is firehousetabletalks@gmail.com. Be safe, look out for one another, and we'll see you around the table next time.
'Cause after time around the firehouse kitchen table, we can go home to the ones